So good morning, everybody. I am Marisa Portuondo. I'm the founder of Portuondo Law Firm, and we are a business law firm. We partner with entrepreneurs to help them grow and protect their businesses. And today I have Suhaill Morales with me, who is an amazing employment attorney. She works for is it Allen Norton Blue or Allen Norton and Blue?
Allen Norton and Blue.
Okay. And they provide employment defense only. So they only work with employers. A lot of employment attorneys will try to, play both sides of the field, and they will represent employees and employers. But Suhaill only works with employers. So she is an expert at dealing with all of the legal issues that we're going to discuss today. She represents some really big clients, municipalities, all kinds of large corporations and cities and things like that. So she's kind of my go-to whenever we have employment issues. You may have seen me interview her when the whole pandemic started, and we talked a lot about the family law leave issues and things like that. So we are back together today as a team to, help give you information on how to properly open. And I'm going to go ahead and start off with just a little bit of, marketing tips that we've actually received. And Sam and Vanessa, you might be familiar with some of these. And then I'm going to discuss kind of the financial side of things. And then Suhaill will go into the laws surrounding, staff and things like that. So as far as reopening, I know, like Lucy, you're really concerned with this and keeping things safe and clean. From a marketing standpoint, we think it's extremely important that you not only have your location professionally cleaned, but that you show people that you're having your location professionally cleaned. So if you haven't already done so, you want to make sure that you hire a company to come in. You don't just want to be, you and your husband or your mom or whoever they're cleaning. You want to, spend the money, have a professional service come out and clean your location if you do have clients or staff that are going to be there. And you want to make sure that, get pictures of it, get video of it. This is going to be great marketing for you. And you want to spread that, okay? So don't be shy about letting people know that you're reopening. Post on Facebook pictures of how you are getting the office ready, how your staff is getting ready. Share these things with your staff as well. You definitely don't want staff to be worried about coming back to work, okay? And so Suhaill's going to cover, that topic a little more in depth as far as the law goes after me. So things that a lot of people may not think about, clean out the refrigerator in your office. Get rid of all that food. No one wants to touch food that's been sitting in a refrigerator for months, especially when there's been a pandemic. Make sure you have brand new supplies. Everything should just be new and clean. A great tip that I loved, because I'm a total germaphobe, was have a Clorox wipes container on everybody's desk so that everyone can clean their own space. Even though you already paid for professionals to come in, some people are still going to want to make sure that they clean their own space to make sure it's up to their own standards. Whatever you can do to make your office look clean and new and fresh, we really recommend that. As far as staff coming back, we recommend that you not just go at 100% from one day to the next. Remember that people have been working from home for 3 months. Remember that if they have children, this is going to be especially difficult for them to suddenly not be with their kids every single day, and it's going to be difficult for them and their children. You don't want that impacting their productivity. You don't want people quitting on you because they're upset or they're, just emotionally not in the right place to come back. So ease people back in. I would recommend staggering your staff as much as possible. Maybe you have half of them come in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the other half come in on Tuesday, Thursday, and they can work from home when they're not at the office. And you want to just make that a very gradual, welcome back during the first month. Do not expect to be at 100% productivity. It's not going to happen. Okay. People need time to adjust, and they're probably still going to be having a lot of responsibilities at home. So that's something else to think about. You also want to think about, maybe doing some team building exercises. You might want to pay for lunch and have just be really caring towards your personnel, because at this time, the last thing you need is to, lose a good staff member and have to replace them. So lots of team building. Of course, you want to keep people as far away from each other as possible, but do that in a safe manner. if you do have staff that has, that have childcare issues, for example, my son, his school is not open yet. And right now, if I worked for somebody else, I would not be able to go back to work because my son has nowhere to go. My husband is essential personnel. So you need to consider that some of your staff might be in that same position and what you're going to do about that. You might want to consider providing some type of childcare for your staff if you can afford that, or you may have to keep that person home in the meantime. And I know Suhail's going to cover that again a little more in depth. By the third week of this is when maybe you want to start kind of weaning them off all the team building activities and things like that. And in week 4, more or less, is when they're recommending that, you start bringing everyone back full time. Make sure you provide plenty of like healthy snacks and things, and just make it a pleasant working environment for people, so that you can show them, that you care about them and that you're a good leader and that this is a positive thing. Okay. As far as, sales and marketing, like I said earlier, make sure you take a lot of photos and videos of the professional cleaning that's going on in your office. I know I've seen Gloria already post some pictures of her staff with the, plexiglass covering the reception, and her staff in logo personalized, customized masks with her logo on it. I think that's fabulous. Just such a great marketing opportunity. And really, think about that stuff. You want to instill confidence in everybody that's looking at your business, that it is a safe and positive environment to come back to. I would certainly address how you are handling safety issues in whatever form of communication you use with your clients, whether that's calling them if you have a small clientele, putting out a video, sending out a newsletter, whatever it is, you need to let people know what you're doing to make sure that they're taken care of. Now, as far as business law issues, as I stated earlier, I am a business attorney, and there will be issues that are going to come up. Everyone's kind of been in survival mode for the last almost 3 months, and so we haven't seen a ton of litigation yet, but it's coming. And the reason it's coming is that a lot of people were unable to fulfill their obligations that they had in their contracts, whether that's you fulfilling your obligations with your clients, you fulfilling your obligations to your vendors fulfilling their obligations to you, or maybe you have an issue with your landlord because you weren't able to pay rent. All of these things are just litigation waiting to happen. So if you have an issue that is just coming and you're kind of procrastinating on dealing with it, I would really strongly suggest that you get in front of the issue and that you try to have a civil conversation with, the other company, the other person, whoever it is that there's a problem with. I find that most things can be worked out without litigation if you get in front of them early enough. The longer you wait on these problems, the angrier people tend to get, and the more set in their ways they tend to get. So don't avoid the uncomfortable conversation, okay? And if it does get to that point where things have broken down and you need to seek legal advice, we're obviously here for that. There will be force majeure clauses in most of your contracts, but these are, this is language that people have just kind of copy pasted for years into their own contracts. And this is why we always recommend that you not write your own contracts. But this is such boilerplate language that a lot of people have ignored it for a long time because we haven't had something like a pandemic since the early 1900s. And now it's suddenly the highlight of every contract. Everyone's worried about their force majeure clauses and whether or not they're going to protect them. I can tell you that those clauses are not black and white, that they are extremely fact dependent, and that because this pandemic is pretty much unprecedented, the law is being written as we speak. So this is very much a gray area, which is a good and a bad thing. It means that you may not know exactly where you stand, but it also means the other side doesn't exactly know where they stand. And that's kind of, I find that that's the best situation for negotiations without litigation. And we do provide that service as well. So I really recommend, if you have a lot of money on the line, that you not negotiate it on your own, hire an experienced business attorney that deals with contractual disputes. Now, something else I wanted to talk about is business interruption insurance. And there's a lot of confusion and misinformation out there about this. And basically what business interruption insurance is it's a protection that's written into your policy. If you have commercial insurance, you may have this coverage. You have to look and check. If you call your broker or even your insurance company, it's very likely that they will tell you, oh, if you're calling about the pandemic, don't even bother. Don't make a claim. There's no coverage for it. And personally, I find it terrible that people are doing that. I think it's really misleading, and the insurance companies are finally realizing this was probably a terrible decision on their part to handle things like that. So now they're finally starting to kind of accept the claims and adjust them. But we are anticipating a legal fight over these claims. We are handling these claims for our clients. What we're doing is we are offering a free consultation, and we're doing a free policy review, and we will let you know if you even have that coverage, because these policies are not easy to interpret. And we will let you know if we think you have a strong argument for coverage. This insurance will actually pay you back for the lost revenue that you incurred as a result of your business shutting down for the pandemic. We offer that on a contingency basis, which means that you don't have to pay us out of pocket, and that all the risk basically is taken by us, because if you don't recover anything, you don't owe us anything. So this is a great way for businesses to, supplement whatever kind of aid they may have received. If you've received PPP, your business interruption claim is not affected by that, which is really important. And a lot of people think it is, but it's not. So again, if you or anyone you know has this issue and they want to talk to us, we'll happily do that for free. Just, make sure you give us a call. Now, as far as PPP loans, a lot of people have kind of given up, I found, with PPP loans. And I don't want people to do that, because there's still a lot of money out there. And actually, they just renewed the law. So, they just added to the law. There's new regulations. And we are actually going to put together a comprehensive, guide to that in our next newsletter. So if you're not signed up for our newsletter, I really recommend that you get signed up for our newsletter, and you can do that on our website. That's really all I have on my end, and I am going to hand it over now to Suhaill so that she can talk about the legal issues that are going to be involved in reopening.
Good morning. Can you all hear me okay? Yep.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Suhaill, if I can interrupt you for a second. If you have questions, start typing them in the chat, because we will answer questions at the end. Go ahead, Suhaill, sorry.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So as Marisa mentioned, I'm an employment defense attorney. I work with the law firm of Norton & Blue, and I've represented businesses and employers for over 10 years now. So what we do is we represent all employers, and I know Marisa said I have some big clients. I also have a lot of small clients. A lot of law firms, our fellow friends who have smaller firms with a few employees. I've helped them with their employee manuals, their handbooks, and their procedures, and a lot of local businesses. We live in South Florida, and there are a lot of misconceptions about what is required to run a business, especially because a large portion of our population comes from a different country, right? And the laws for running a business in all different countries is very different than they are here. So I have worked with a lot of minorities to make sure that they're complying with the laws in the state and as well as the federal laws. And it's actually very interesting. I think my goal is always preventative and counseling work, and making sure that businesses are doing what they are required to do and not breaking any laws. But we're also there when inevitably a policy goes wrong and something happens that requires litigation. So we litigate the claim in my firm. So what are a few things? Now we're reopening, right? A lot of businesses are thinking of reopening. The main points that we're going to discuss and that you're going to want to consider is, for those of you who have employees, recalling employees, right? How to recall and who to recall. Are you going to be making any changes to the terms and conditions of employment? That is, are you going to be changing their salaries or their wages because your business has been affected? There's safety concerns. And there's, the issue of masks and face coverings. Do we have to wear them? Who has to wear them? A big issue is what happens when an employee at work tests positive. What do you do then? And then we're going to talk about some of those issues, and Marisa mentioned one of them, being childcare issue, those reluctant or high-risk employees who may not want to or may not be able to return to work fully. So for those of you who are recalling some of your employees, if you have a large number of employees and you only want to recall a portion of them, make sure that you are using non-discriminatory methods to recall employees, right? So seniority is a good one. Usually those employees who've been with you the longest, you would recall them first. Another way to do it is, for example, there's different departments that you need for your operation that are going to start back up before other ones. You can recall the employees in those departments before you recall employees in other ones. What you don't want to focus on is employees who you think might be a little sick and you don't want them to come back because they're sick. Why? Because that can open you up to a claim with regard to their potential disability if they claim to have one in the future. So if an individual has a health issue, that could be left up to them not to come back or to advise you that they don't want to come back. But make sure, and I say this in any training or seminar or webinar that I give, make sure you document what you're doing. Documentation is key. So if you're only recalling some of your employees, make sure you document who you're recalling and why you're recalling them. So I mentioned changes in terms and conditions of employment. Most of your employees should be at-will employees, I would assume. If you have at-will employees, you can change their wages, salary at will. And that can be based on, your decision, the company's not doing as well, we need to cut salaries 20%, or whatever reasons you may want to give. However, if you have an employee who's on a contract basis, then you can't just change their salary because there's a contract. So you might need to do what's called a novation or an updated contract agreement if they agree. If not, you have to continue to pay them the wages that's set forth in the contract. What about those employees that are exempt from the FLSA, salaried exempt employees, right? I know we use the term salaried employees often, but not everyone who receives just a salary is exempt from the FLSA's overtime requirements. So those employees who are exempt, if you're going to reduce their salaries, keep in mind that the Department of Labor just changed the weekly minimum rate to $684 a week. So you can't drop their salary below that. Also, what happens in these times is that there's a lot of restructuring. So if you're restructuring the position of a salaried exempt employee and you're now removing those qualifications that made them exempt, for example, if they're no longer supervising other employees, then you may want to reevaluate whether or not this person is exempt any longer. So they may have to go from being a salaried exempt employee to an hourly employee. So the next topic, is everyone good so far? I know it's a little boring, but it's some of the requirements that we have to get through. I find it very exciting. My husband thinks I'm obnoxious. But so the other issues that we have to deal with are safety concerns. Safety concerns should be your primary concern. And you should let your employees know, and for those of you who have clients and customers coming, they should know that safety is your top concern. There is still a recommendation that you take employee temperature checks. Even though we've learned that a lot of the individuals carrying the coronavirus are asymptomatic, right? And they are not going to display a fever. It is recommended that you take a temperature, the employee's temperature before arriving at work. Who should take the temperature? It should be one person from management or whatever, whoever you designate, but it should be one person, and I would designate a manager, and that person should be provided with all the proper PPE equipment, gloves, face masks, protective gear, anything that would protect this person best. The other thing that you should know is if you're taking temperatures and you're recording those temperatures, that's a medical record, and that is now confidential. So that medical record is going to be subject to the same confidentiality that other medical records are subject to. If you have employees that clock in and out and you're waiting for them to clock in and out and they're not clocked in until you've taken their temperature, you might want to reconsider that, because the law is divided as to whether or not the time that employees spend waiting to take their temperature constitutes compensable time. But the last thing you want to get hit with is a lawsuit because you failed to pay an employee while he or she was waiting to take their temperature. Now, what else can you do? A lot of employers are doing questionnaires. You can ask an employee or customer or client, by the way, if they're experiencing any symptoms. For example, you can ask if they have cough, fever, shortness of breath. So what most of our clients have done is they put together this questionnaire that has 4 questions, very simple. And it just says, you know, in the last 24 hours, have you experienced any of these symptoms? Cough, fever, shortness of breath, diarrhea, headache, fatigue, all those. Yes or no? In the last 24 hours, have you, or in the last 14 days, I'm sorry, in the last 14 days, have you traveled outside of the state? In the last 14 days, have you been in contact with anyone that has tested positive for coronavirus? And in the last 14 days, has anyone in your household tested positive for coronavirus? Those are the general questions that are on this questionnaire. And if the employee says yes to any of those questions, you can decide that you do not want to allow this employee to come back to work yet. You can also require an employee to get tested for coronavirus before returning to work. Normally, the laws restrict what kinds of tests we can have employees do before returning to work. However, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, has issued its guidance, and the Department of Labor agrees that because we are trying to stop the spread of coronavirus, and because there are so many asymptomatic individuals, that an employer has an interest in stopping the spread and can require employees to get tested before returning to work. And that's been a big breakthrough. It's been a big change in what is normally the status quo for employers and what they're allowed to ask their employees before coming back to work. But it is specifically because the goal is to stop the spread of coronavirus. Now, a lot of people are talking about the other testing, the one that shows you the enzyme or the antibodies that would show if you've had coronavirus supposedly, or whatever the test is supposed to do. You cannot require an employee to get tested for the antibodies. That's intrusive because that doesn't really show you whether or not the employee currently has coronavirus, and it's not meant to stop the spread. Masks and face coverings are a big issue. So the question is whether or not you can require employees to wear masks. And the answer is yes, absolutely. The CDC has still indicated that it is best to wear masks. You should also still practice social distancing at work. So the way that most businesses are handling it is, for example, if you have an employee that is in his or her own office, that employee would not have to wear the mask while in the office. However, if the employee is going to be in an area where there are multiple employees or they can walk by employees, then during those times, the employee should be wearing a mask. Can you provide your employees with a mask? Absolutely. If you want to provide them with a box of surgical masks, that is great. Or if, some of our employers, Gloria is a great example of this. She made some very, very nice masks that have her logo on it. And that's a great idea. However, keep in mind that some employees, there's problematic employees everywhere, right? So you don't want an employee to say that you gave them a mask that was defective and that as a result of that mask, they got coronavirus. Because one thing we know, and it's already started, is that the number of claims based on the coronavirus are increasing. So there's going to be more workers' compensation claims, we know that, and there's going to be a lot of different types of litigation that are going to be tied to the effects of coronavirus in the workplace. So if an employee wants to bring their own mask, hey, that's their mask, and that's even better for them. What do you do if an employee is refusing to wear a mask? You can send them home. You do not have to, that is part of the policy right now. It's, temporary policy, albeit, hopefully, but that is part of the policies and the requirements. So if they want to come to work, they have to wear a mask. And if there's any medical reason that they cannot wear a mask, then they have to provide you with those medical objections, not just because it's uncomfortable. It's not comfortable for anyone, right? It has to be based on a medical reason. And the CDC has issued, and I think the mayor has also, and the Florida governor, medical reasons that individuals would not have to wear masks. If it's any of those reasons, then yes. Otherwise, we will all be uncomfortable together, but it keeps us safe. Marisa mentioned a good thing, and I said it yesterday during one of my meetings. In our office, we provided every employee in our firm with Lysol Clorox wipes and a pump hand sanitizer to have on their desk. Every single employee in our office has it. It's a good practice. We've asked every employee at the end of the day to wipe down their station to make sure it's clean. Before you reopen, Marisa mentioned this, you may want to contract someone to come do a deep cleaning, a coronavirus bacteria cleaning, whatever it is that they call it now. One, it shows initiative by the company, and as business owners, we know that this is a double-edged sword, right? We want to make sure that we are doing the right thing, but we also want to make sure that when we're doing the right thing, we're showing our employees that we're doing the right thing so they find comfort in that, right? There's certain comfort that you get in knowing that your business is taking care of you and knowing that they're taking the extra steps, right? It builds employee morale. So if you know that your company has done this cleaning, great, right? It makes you feel more comfortable coming back to work knowing that your office space has been completely disinfected. Now, if you don't hire a professional company to do that and you decide to do it in-house, make sure that whatever employee you're using to clean or pick up is provided with the proper gear to help protect that employee. So what do you do if one of your employees tests positive for coronavirus? Inevitably, this is going to happen. We know that the numbers are increasing again, right? And it's what's going to happen with the world's reopening. We knew that 2 weeks ago when things started to reopen, there was a possibility that the number of people tested positive were going to increase. And I think that's what we're seeing now. So what happens if one of your employees tests positive and they tell you that? The first thing you should do is ask this employee who he or she came in contact with in the last 2 weeks, right? Make a list of those individuals. Then you have to advise those individuals that a coworker has tested positive for coronavirus and that they may have been exposed to it. You do not, and let me say this again, you do not, capital N-O-T, not, identify the employee who tested positive. That is medical information, right? I understand that you might have 5 employees and the other 4 employees are going to figure it out, right? Cool. But you're not the person saying it. And you know, you don't want to be the person who has coronavirus and then your boss is telling everyone, oh, look, Suhaill got coronavirus. Ew. Come on. So the reality is people are going to know who it was, but you don't want to tell them. Then you send this person home. You send them home for 14 days as is required. And those other employees with whom he or she had contact with, you may want to get them tested too, right? You're going to want to send them home also. Everyone is going home. What do you do next? Typically, we say you wait 24 hours and then you hire a company to come disinfect. It's been recommended that, you know, there's a 24-hour lag just to avoid additional spread. And we do say that in these situations, it's best to hire a company because now you know that you had the virus in your workplace. So the best thing to do is make sure that you have the proper cleaning of that workplace. But if not, we recommend that you have a staff, but give them all the everything. I mean, put them in like a hospital gown, scrubs, and suit them up as much as possible. If you have a hazmat suit, go ahead. But you don't want your employee who's now cleaning the area of a positively tested other employee to get sick because, as we may know, that may be a workers' comp claim, Gloria, right? So you want to avoid this as much as possible and disinfect any area that this employee came in contact with: copy machines, doorknobs, cabinets, refrigerators, right? But good practice should be that on a daily basis, and I know this seems very tedious, on a daily basis, we should be disinfecting all of these common areas. You should be wiping down the refrigerator, the copy machine, the doorknobs, the filing cabinet. The way we've done it in our office is my assistant is next to one copy machine. She's in charge of that copy machine at the end of the day. There's one associate upstairs who's next to the kitchen. He's in charge of wiping down, you know, the refrigerator. Everyone has something that they're assigned to because, you know, if not, we forget. But these are areas that everyone is constantly touching. And, you know, this virus is a novel virus. Everyone says that. And every time we think we know something about it, everything changes. So the best practice is to be safe and to make sure that you're taking all possible precautions. So now you're coming back to work and you are going to start recalling your employees. And there's going to be some employees who are hesitant to come back. I mean, I don't know how I felt about going back to my office. One day I felt relieved because my son was just, he's 3 and it was a lot. So I was looking forward to going back to my office until I started driving. And then I got like anxious and nervous, right? Because I didn't know what I was going to be exposed to and what I was going to see. And I think a lot of our employees are probably feeling this way still now. So I'm going to talk about the legal requirements of it and what legally as business owners and employers we have to do. However, there's always room for you to do things differently if you want to do more for your employees, right? But just, I would caution you to be careful because sometimes you start giving one employee a little bit more and then the other employee wants it, and then you're in a situation where you have no employees again, right? The CDC, the governors, everyone has recommended that if you can continue to work from home and it is viable for your business to have your employees to continue working from home now, do it. Our office is not necessarily structured that way. We're a little old school. So we are back to a full office of employees, and the only difference that we've made is we're not having clients visit us yet. So if a client wants to come to our office, they need to make an appointment. They need to fill out this questionnaire beforehand, telling us where they've been and what exposure they've had. But honestly, we have not had any client that wants to come after that. So we've had Zoom meetings with our clients. So our business is still closed to clients. I know for other businesses, Lucy, for you example, clients or students may be your business, so you're going to need to see those individuals. So you'll probably want to make sure you have this questionnaire that they fill out so that you can go about your business as is required. But now with your employees, let's say you have an employee and you recall this employee, but this employee is afraid to come back because of underlying health conditions. You are not supposed to ask employees about their underlying health conditions, right? When I mentioned earlier that we can ask an employee if they felt shortness of breath, cough, fever, we can ask them all of those things. But what we cannot ask is, do you have an underlying health condition that is going to make you more susceptible to the virus, and not contracting the virus, but more susceptible to the symptoms and of the virus, right? We don't ask that. We don't want to know that. But if you have an employee that tells you this, and you're an employer that has a certain number of employees, you may have ADA, an American with Disabilities Act situation, because this person's underlying health condition may possibly qualify as a disability, whereby you would have to provide them a reasonable accommodation. So you would have to discuss that and engage in what's called the interactive process, right? But just because this person has an underlying health condition does not mean that you cannot require them to come back to work if it's not feasible. There are some states, if any of you are not in Florida, for example, Colorado requires you to have an accommodation that prohibits an employer from calling back these employees that have underlying health conditions. If you have more than 50 employees, then these high-risk employees, we call them, might be able to take FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, which is unpaid leave for 12 weeks based on their serious health condition. But that is something that you have to explore and engage in what's called an interactive process. You can't just make a decision, oh, your morbid obesity is insufficient, come back to work. I would engage in it a little bit more and try to figure out, is there an accommodation that we can provide for you? Can I continue to have you work remotely in that situation? Employees with childcare issues. Now, this is not going to be a popular thing. Unfortunately, our system was not built for what happened. And I'm not sure what system would be, but in the United States, most parents work. And it's both parents in a household working, and they send their children to school, right? We all know that. So what happens now when your work is reopening, but there's no school for the children? That is a very tough situation that many, many individuals are going to see themselves with. So when Congress passed the Families First Coronavirus Act back in last week of March, first week of April, they made what's called Extended Family Medical Leave Act available for employers and employees who have this childcare issue. And it applies to those employees who their daycare or school is closed due to the coronavirus, right? So for example, if now we're entering summer, if your child would not have been in any summer camp normally, that does not qualify you for the leave. However, if typically your child would have been in a daycare or camp right now, and that camp is closed because of the coronavirus, then you may be entitled as an employee to 12 weeks of pay at 2/3 your pay, which would be no more than $200 per day. And I said 12 weeks, it's because it's 2 weeks under the, it's 2 weeks, that's a good question, Vanessa. 2 weeks under the Paid Sick Leave Act, and then 10 weeks under the e-family leave. There's questions as to whether or not you should be required to send your child to a different school, because there are different schools that are now open and different daycares that are now open. As it stands currently, there is no requirement that you force a parent to send their kids to a school that they would not have otherwise sent them. Right now, that's the case. However, let's say, Vanessa, you have 6 employees, right? And putting an employee on this type of leave would hinder and basically ruin your business, because you can't pay an employee for 12 weeks. Then the Department of Labor says that there's an exception for those employers, mostly very small employers, who putting an employee on leave like this would basically destroy the business. But you have to claim that exception, right? You have to say, hey, my employee came, said they want these weeks, we can't do that. What I'm not saying is what's the obvious. Yes, destroy. I know it's they use very harsh words, but it can honestly bring down a business if you have a number of employees who are asking for this leave. Then how are you going to sustain your business paying employees who are not there? You can continue to allow employees to work from home. So what the Department of Labor has said is they've encouraged those employers that have employees with childcare issues to continue to allow those employees to work from home, and therefore they're still working like usual, and you're not giving them this leave. You're just working with them so that they can still work remotely. The employee also has to show that there is no other person in the household that can care for them, right? So the husband can't do it. So for example, I'll give you my example. We're both technically essential employees, right? I'm a lawyer, which is essential. But my husband works for Miami-Dade Police Department. In this law, they exempt emergency response personnel, right? So they're not qualified for childcare leave if they're an emergency response personnel. So in our house, since my husband technically would not qualify for this type of leave, I would qualify for it because I'm the only person in the household that can care for our child. I think this is going to be a big issue that we're going to be seeing. I'm hoping that what happens is that a lot of employers are going to allow employees to continue to work remotely as much as possible. There's also the possibility of, alternating days and doing what you can to accommodate the schedules, but there are daycares that are opening. There are summer camps that are opening. So hopefully it won't be as much of an impact as we initially thought it would be. I know the Florida governor just issued the order that camps should be reopening next week, if I'm correct. So that should be something that is less of an impact, but it's still a problem that we have and we're going to have to face. So the last example that I have is, what about those employees who are concerned about bringing the virus home? You live with your elderly parents. There's no obligation currently under the law in Florida or federally for you to allow leave for someone who just doesn't want to come in because they're afraid of spreading it. It's just, it's not one of the qualifying factors, and it's unfortunate. And maybe if your business wants to continue to allow this employee to work from home, you can, but it's not one of the qualifying factors. And I know Marisa said this, but probably what may be best for your business is to ease into going back to work. A lot of us have been working from home for a long time, so start with partial schedules. I know, for example, my husband's office, they're doing it that they're rotating shifts so that there's not as much interaction between the employees. So one employee works Monday, Wednesday, the other one works Tuesday, Thursday. One of my clients, actually, what they're doing is block schedules because they thought Monday, Wednesday was stupid because, you know, the employee would be there Monday and Wednesday, but then they would cross and it wasn't as sanitary. So what they're doing is one employee goes Monday, Tuesday, the next one goes Wednesday, Thursday. That way that same employee is there 2 days straight, they clean their area, then the next one's there 2 days straight, they clean their area, and there's less cross-contamination. You have to find the method that is really best for you. We've put together a guide for our clients with the most frequently asked questions, a little training presentation that they can use to help, and questionnaires and what they can and cannot ask. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to help. I saw the little button bleeping on the bottom, but I didn't see all of the comments. So that's what I have for you guys now. And we can, I guess, open it for discussion, Marisa.
Yeah, thank you, Suhaill. So I wanted to, let's see. I wanted to make sure okay, so I know when you asked about the questionnaire, the first question was 1 day. Was that correct? Because then you were like 14 days. The first question is still the 1 day, right? If they have symptoms, that's 1 day.
Yeah, the first question is, in the last 24 hours, have you experienced any of these symptoms? Yeah.
Okay. Something I forgot to mention during my presentation that I wanted to make sure you guys know about, and I actually benefited from this, is that the county is giving away these boxes. If I think it was $250,000, your revenue had to be underneath 250, and we were like literally just under that. They give you this amazing box of gloves and plastic PPEs and hand sanitizer, and just it's insane. So it's great. So if you can get your hands on that, I recommend it. A great thing for micro businesses like mine. When you go ahead.
I see that Gloria posted. Is there anything that you request posting on the notice? One of the things that we've recommended is that you post that you reserve the right to turn anyone away not complying with your requirements. And mask, no visitors, and wash your hands before coming. Or if you have like a sanitizer right in the front, a lot of, make sure you sanitize as soon as you come in. I would put that on the door.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through all the questions, Suhaill. Let me see. Oh, waivers is something that neither one of us discussed, but you might really want to consider having your clients, sign a waiver that, again, this is a novel virus. We don't know everything about it, and that they are willingly taking that risk on, by coming into the office, that we have done everything in our power to, keep a safe, clean environment. But, especially if you are in some kind of hands-on business, you really need to consider that. Do you think that you can have your employees sign something like that, Suhaill? And if you did, would it matter?
No. No, because there's the issue, and I've dealt with this a few times now, because we actually helped one of our clients do a waiver for their clients, and they wanted to do it for their employees. But you can't waive workers' comp issues, right? So
no, you can't waive them at all.
Yeah, that was my suspicion.
Yeah.
Okay. What if you cannot keep your staff 6 feet apart with the way your office is configured? I mean, aside from obviously keeping some of them home, is there anything, are you required to keep them 6 feet apart, or is that a kind of a gray area?
No, it's a gray area. If you cannot keep your staff 6 feet apart just because of the way it works, like for example, we have a client that has a production line, right? So in that line, they've tried to modify it, but there's still some employees that are not. So when employees cannot be socially distanced, they must have a mask on during the time that they're working.
Got it. Okay, and then I'm going to start running through the questions. So, okay, so Gloria, you already answered her question. Anya asked about policies that require, let me see, policies that have specific pandemic exclusionary clauses cannot be effectively disputed, can they? Absolutely they can. The insurance company will tell you otherwise, but we have very strong arguments against those exclusions. And first of all, you know, one of the things is that your business didn't technically shut down because of the pandemic. Your business was shut down because of a civil authority order. And that's a completely different cause of the loss of the business. So there's a lot of, sorry, Gloria, if you could mute yourself.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a lot of just, you know, like I said, gray area, and the government is already preparing a reinsurance program to support these insurance companies, because the big push is coming that these insurance companies are going to have to pay these policies. Now, obviously, we can't guarantee that. This is all new. This is literally history in the making. There are laws being passed on a federal level. There are ordinances being passed on a municipality and county and state level that are saying, if you got shut down because you were ordered to be shut down, that is considered property damage and that is a covered loss. Now, how effective those laws are going to be, that's a TBD. So we are fighting these claims, and like I said, you know, we're basically the ones taking that risk on because the client's not paying us out of pocket. Yeah, cooties. All right, I think the daycare situation was already discussed about being able to take, you know, if the employee has to send them to another school. Are we going to have a questionnaire we can use for our employees? I don't personally have one, but that's not a bad idea. I can certainly put one together, and I don't know if Suhaill already has one.
What kind of questionnaire? Like the ones that I said with the 4, I have one.
Perfect. And then Lucy is saying, where do we apply for that package? What about customers? Can we send them home? Waivers? Can we use templates? Okay, I would say from a business law perspective, you can absolutely send your customers home. I think what Suhaill mentioned is very important, that you put that notice, you know, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, to, you know, whatever wording applies to your type of business, but it's a private establishment, you know, so yeah, absolutely. I don't see an issue with that as long as you have, you know, a good reason, and it's not obviously a discriminatory reason as far as, you know, their race or anything similar to that. Can we send them home? Yes, you can send the customers. Well, I don't know if you can send them home, but you can send them away. Waivers. Can we use templates? What do you mean by that, Lucy? You can unmute, I'll unmute, or I'm asking you to unmute yourself, I guess.
Okay. I'm thinking about, do we need to have a waiver that is really, that it was customized for us, for our business, or I can go online and find a waiver and just design something for?
So, you know, I'm sure the attorneys already know what my answer is going to be. As a business attorney, I would never in a million years recommend that my client take a waiver from the internet, because you want something customized. Now, is a waiver from the internet better than nothing? Yes. But, you know, it's definitely something that you might want to consider having drafted, you know, customized for your business, with the understanding, of course, that there's never going to be a bulletproof waiver. I've had clients tell me, oh, I need a bulletproof waiver. There's no such thing. Because at the end of the day, it's very fact specific whether or not your waiver is enforceable. Okay. But the more customized that waiver is, the better the chance you have of it being enforceable. Does that make sense? So, you know, if you absolutely are in a place where you cannot afford to pay an attorney to do it, then yeah, you know, try to find something is better than nothing.
Okay, thank you.
And they're pretty straightforward, these waivers. They shouldn't be complicated. So
yeah,
no attorney should charge you too much for them.
Yeah.
It's not more than a page.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't be, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It should be, you know, maybe an hour of work. I would say no more than that. Now, as far as the county, I'm going to look for, let me see if they're still, because I can throw up the link. I'll find that in a second. Back to Business Box is what it's called. And I will throw up the link right here in the chat. If that doesn't work, then just Google back, you know, Miami-Dade Back to Business. I wanted to make sure, you know, if anyone wants to make an appointment to talk about their business interruption, you can go to this link, that plfmiami.com/get paid. And then I wanted to throw up does anyone else have any other questions? You can raise your hand or you can type it in the chat. Okay, so I'm just going to real quick, and I probably should have done this when I was done with my presentation. But I did have this open and now I don't think it is. Oh, here it is. So I just wanted to put our contact information up there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I was worried about Jake, my son, behaving himself, but he seems to have, for the most part, done that. So
Thank you, ladies.
I will thank him
Thank
later.
you. Happy Friday.
If you guys have any
Thank
questions,
you.
obviously you know where to find us. And so let me finish sharing my screen here. I don't know, can you guys see that
Sharing.
information?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, so that's my contact information. I'll give you a chance to do a screenshot or write down whatever you need. I think most of you already know how to contact me. That at Portuondo Law at the bottom, that's how you follow us on social media. That's our handle all across all social media. And then we have Suhail's information
Oh, that's really good.
for whoever needs to contact her.
Suhail's like, I'm not on social media.
I threw this together right before we started because Suhaill was on a call and I realized she didn't have a contact us slide. So I threw it together.
I'm impressed. Marisa did a great job in like 2 minutes. So
I
think it
literally
was
put
great.
that together in like 2 minutes because she's like, I'm on a call. And I was like, all right, don't worry, I got you. So how do I stop sharing this?
You already stopped sharing.
You already did.
Did? Oh, okay, good. Well, no wonder I couldn't find it. So anything else, speak now, or I guess not forever hold your peace because you can contact us. But, you guys stay safe. Be nice to your employees. I don't think I need to tell anyone that in this group.
And if you're gonna get a mask, go get a cute one.
Yeah, you got to tell me where you got those. And do they fog your glasses?
Not at all.
Because that's a big
And it's
concern now.
actually it's like a bikini material. If I can describe it as anything, it's like awesome. It's double lined. So Suhaill, I hope no one has an issue with the no, but honestly, we had this and we got the face shields also, and we're meeting with the clients like around the office. They use this or they use their own. They're not required. I just gave it to those that didn't have. Basically as an option for them to wear, but they love it because it's soft, it's easy to wear. So yeah, I'll share the contact information with you, Marisa.
Yes. Perfect. And you bring up a good point. Like, I don't know if we're allowed to require our clients to wear masks. I would assume you are, especially if
you are.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the notice that I put on my door, my building requires it. There's notices all over my building that they put up. The elevator has a 2-person maximum capacity requirement. And my office, I put up a notice on the door, which I'm gonna add a reserve the right to turn anyone away now. Thank you, Suhaill. But yeah, it has the notices up on the door that we don't want visitors and we want social distancing and wear a mask.
Perfect.
Yeah, I saw one, those old like no shoes, no service. It said no mask, no service.
Yeah,
that's great. I like that. That's cute.
Yeah. Now I had a question. When you said about them bringing in their own masks, if that so that way they're not basically holding you liable for a mask failure or something, doesn't that kind of turn it the other way? Because then what if someone's like, well, I got sick because you allowed so and so to bring their own crappy mask in?
Yeah, no. They're always going to say something. They're always going to. So
you can't. Yeah, you can't cover every base, right?
No, you can't. But there's already been a claim where supposedly an employer provided masks and then the employee said that they provided bad masks. That's why they got sick. So.
Wow.
It's a tough standard under workers' comp anyway, unless they're state employees, and we talked about that. But under workers' comp, it is a tough standard to prove. So don't fear, ladies. It's better to provide something than not to provide anything, I think.
Yeah.
I was actually gonna ask Tanya if she had a question, but it looks like she just had to hop off. Lucy, I see your question. How to, I guess you're asking how to change an employee from exempt to hourly. I think that's gonna be a very probably detailed, act-specific situation, and I don't want to speak for Suhaill, but that might be something that requires a consultation. So you
Okay.
go ahead and.
Yeah, it might be complicated because it depends. We have to analyze the duties of the position and determine whether or not, and then just change them after that.
Okay. I will get back to you. Then.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Anything else, ladies?
Thank you both.
All righty. Well, listen, have a great, what day is it today? Friday?
Friday. Happy Friday.
Yay. Have a great Friday, and let's all do a funner social Zoom soon.
Sounds
Definitely.
good.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Nessa.
Bye.